get some, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they tell you some things.
Yeah. You think any of their advice ever?
You know, most of them were just so damn glad to be going home.
Yeah, I'll bet.
But nevertheless, they told you some things. Yeah, I don't remember all the details, but it was nice to talk with guys who had flown these missions.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and get some of their experience.
Yeah. Did any of that ever help you? I mean, do you remember specifically any advice anybody gave you that was helpful?
Yeah, about formation flying especially.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they couldn't stress the fact that the closer you could fly together was your safest bet.
Yeah. Okay.
That was stressed over and over again. When those fighters come at you, if they're facing many, many guns,
Right.
we had 50 caliber guns, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
and they were pretty good. Pretty good. We had them all over the plane. You had them on the waist, had them
Right.
on the top turret, had a tail gun, you had a nose.
Yeah,
And then if you
ball
brought
turret.
all these planes together like
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
you had a lot of firepower.
Yeah.
And they did. They brought down a lot of planes,
Yeah.
enemy planes.
Yeah.
But the stress was, stay together.
Yeah.
Don't separate yourself. It was very tense for the pilot to fly that close.
Yeah. Especially a B-24.
Yeah. So they would try to open up the formation a little bit, you know, take some of the tension off.
Yeah.
But the word was stay tight, stay tight, stay tight.
Yeah.
Don't spread out, because if you spread out, you become a target.
Yeah. Can you tell us what a typical mission would be like? Or say, I guess you have the short ones, you don't have to get up as early. Or did you get up the same time for every mission, no matter how distant it was?
I don't recall, but it was always early.
Mm-hmm. So what would be a typical sort of day of a mission? What would you do? Who would get you up, and what did you do? What was the, before you actually got on the plane?
There was some guy would come in the barrack and holler, it's time to get up, and then everybody would open their eyes a little bit and yawn and whatever they had to and say, oh no. But as a crew, if one got up and two got up, well, they'd get the other ones up
Yeah.
too. But it was usually around 3 o'clock in the morning, about 3.
Mm-hmm.
You'd get up, and what you do is you went down to a hut, a little larger hut, where they stretched out the map. You've seen pictures of that, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
Where they stretch out the map and they go over the mission for the day.
Now,
then
did
you
you-
go back?
Did you eat first, or did you go
No,
see?
then you'd go back and eat.
Oh, okay, so you'd see that first.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
you get briefed,
Okay.
and then all the signals that you had to know and which you were going to fly and that kind of thing. I would write everything down at the briefing, and then go grab something to eat and get everything together.
What would your breakfast be, usually? Good breakfast, or?
Yeah, had eggs a lot of times when they flew a mission. You wouldn't have them otherwise. But
Uh-huh.
they had them when they flew a mission.
Uh-huh.
Have some eggs, cereal.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully hot most of the time. I liked hot.
At 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning, yeah.
More like maybe 5 when you got to breakfast.
Okay.
And you didn't have much time for breakfast. You just took off and got yourself ready, because what they'd do is they'd have to drive you out to the hard stand where the plane was. You'd jump in one of these trucks
Mm-hmm.
with the canvas over it and that's why. And you'd all jump in there and they'd drive you out to your plane. But you'd have all your gear with you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, did you ever take food or anything to drink on these missions? especially the longer ones?
We had sea rations, yeah.
Okay.
We had rations.
Anything to drink? What would you drink?
Water is all.
Yeah.
And I don't think the water even could stand the temperature.
Yeah, probably
right now.
freeze. Yeah.
I never drank them.
Yeah.
So I got
Now, what
back.
about? We've heard mixed stories about toilets on B-24s and B-17s. I mean, some of them, you know. What did you do? Okay, did your plane have one?
No,
Okay, so what did you guys do?
the Bombay.
Okay. Now we've heard about the relief tubes as well. Did your plane have those, and how useful were they, if you did?
Yeah, the relief tubes worked a little bit. I used the. I was up in the nose, you know.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know whether you knew that. I flew some of my missions back at the pilot was here, and I
Mhm.
was back to back with the pilot.
Okay. Yeah.
But otherwise, I was up in the nose because I had an observation
Yeah.
blister or whatever you call it. One of those
So you were in
bubbles.
front. You were actually in front of the pilot, then and
Yeah.
above him, right?
Yeah, I was in the nose.
And
of the
and then
plane.
the bombardier would be beneath you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what would you do if
I
you
was
had?
up there with a nose gunner.
Okay. So if you
he and I were up there.
had to go, what did you do in that situation?
On the floor, I guess. I never had to do the two. It was
You were-
always one.
You were lucky.
Uh,
We've heard stories.
I,
Did you guys get issued? I'll tell you this once. It was very funny. At one point, this is 15th Air Force guys, and they were flying a B-24, and they said they gave them these infantry helmets. I said, "What the hell are we going to use these infantry helmets for?" Well, they found out very quickly what they could use them for. They said they'd toss them out the bomb bays, and they said, "Lord knows who got hit below with these things."
another casualty.
Yeah, yeah.
My favorite story about being up there in the vulnerable spot of the plane, of course. I don't know where I got it, but I requisitioned a steel plate,
Uh-huh.
quarter-inch thick steel
Uh-huh.
plate,
Uh-huh.
and it was about that wide, about that long. And I brought that up in the plane with me. I would take that up in the plane with me, and I put it on the bottom,
Uh-huh.
and then that's where I stood on that. So anything coming up,
Yeah. Would hopefully
little pieces
ricochet
of
off.
shrapnel
Yeah.
flak
Yeah.
would get stopped. Now, if it came in through the side, then I was vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I did have some pieces come in through the sides, but that piece on the bottom, I think, helped me a lot because that's where the stuff was coming up from mostly.
Huh.
But I had that, and I also had on a flak jacket, which protected my chest area.
Uh-huh. So I assume everybody on the crew had one of those, right?
Everybody had one. Everyone who wanted one had one.
Yeah. Did you ever have these helmets that?
And I also had a Mae West, by the way.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Did you ever have one of these helmets that these other guys talked about? No.
No.
Huh.
Some of the guys had gear that protected their heads a little bit. I never used it.
Yeah. So what about walking back and forth? We've heard stories about trying to walk back and forth over the Bombay on these really narrow little
Yeah.
catwalks. What
It
was?
was touch and go, yeah.
So did you do that? Did you have to do? You tried to avoid that, I assume.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I've been back there. I had done it. Yeah. You got used to it in some ways. I wasn't a worrywart.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if, how did you sleep over there? I mean, did you ever have nightmares or any of that
I
kind of
don't
thing?
think I had any nightmares until I come home.
Okay.
My mother was telling me one time when I got home from overseas, I was sitting in a chair like that
Mm-hmm.
and maybe dozed off a little bit or something, and then something happened in my mind. I don't know what it was, and I jumped up and thought I was in the plane.
Yeah.
But that's a rare occasion.
Okay. So you
I
don't
think I assimilated back to civilian life
pretty easily.
pretty easily,
Yeah.
most of the way easily. I stayed in,
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
After I closed the base, I was one of the few who stayed to close the base.
Uh-huh.
And then I came back here, I got some time off, and I went down to Texas to train in B-29s.
Uh-huh.
I was going to be a navigator in the B-29,
Wow.
but August came beforehand and stopped that because when they dropped the atomic bomb,
Right. Yeah.
it ended the war in the Pacific. So I stopped training in the B-29.
So where were you training for that? Where?
Elgin Field, Texas.
Okay. Now let's go back to Europe again. So do you remember when your last mission was? I mean, how close to the end of the war was your last mission?
Yeah, it was pretty close to the end. I think within a week.
Huh.
Let me see. Thought I had that out. I should have kept it out.
We've got the log underneath the flak map there.
Oh, is that where it is?
Yeah.
That's what I need.
Okay. And then afterwards, some guys were telling us how at one point they actually were flying missions where they would either take some of the ground crew over to take a look at what they'd done. They'd actually fly some of their ground crew over areas of Europe to show them what damage they'd done, and then the other guys were dropping relief supplies and stuff. Did you ever do any of that kind of thing?
No.
No.
No. 21, 25, 26, 27, 28. My last mission was on March 25th.
Okay.
High right lead.
Must have been very little opposition at that point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was no trouble getting missions in then.
Oh.
They were pretty well beat, the Germans. But I was single, unmarried, obviously single, and I didn't have enough points to get out. Like the pilot had a wife and a child, and the others had some of the gunners had the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
So when they came back, they were discharged.
Yeah.
But I stayed in, and as I said, I went down. I was starting to do training in B-29
Mm-hmm.
Super Bomber,
Yeah.
fly in the Pacific.
Yeah.
But I never flew any missions.
Right. Now, in Europe, do you remember where you were on VE Day then? Do you have a memory of that?
I remember going down to London,
Okay.
but not on VE Day.
Okay, just other times.
Right after VE
Oh,
Day.
okay. Well, yeah, you didn't tell us any about. You said after what was it? After 6 missions, you got your air medal, and then did you get a break at that point? Did you get some time off?
No, there was only one break.
Okay, when was that?
I'm not sure.
About halfway through?
In between, I'd have to look back in the
Okay.
records, but it was in between flying
Right.
missions. I think after maybe I had 10 or 15 missions, they gave me a week off.
Where did you? And that's when you went to Scotland.
Scotland. I went
Okay.
up to Scotland. And I looked up, my father had a 6-family apartment house in Newark, where I was brought up. And there was a Scotch family
Mm-hmm.
that had emigrated from Scotland some years before,
Mm-hmm.
who were one of the tenants.
Uh-huh.
And their name was Steger. I still remember the last name. I don't remember much more about them. But they had relatives in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
And through communications, I found out where the relatives
Huh.
were. So
Okay.
when I got a chance to
Uh-huh.
go up to Scotland, I looked them up.
Okay.
And those poor buggers, they didn't have, much of anything, like
Yeah.
sugar or candy or,
Yeah.
all that stuff. They were really, in wartime
Yeah.
activity.
Heavily rationed. Yeah.
But they were the nicest people. And I had never met them, of course. I just mentioned this name of Stager, that
Mhm.
their relatives were in the United States. And they took me in like I was a long-lost son,
Huh. Yeah.
Treated me so nice and gave me whatever they had. Food.
Yeah.
And they didn't have anything, but it was there,
Yeah.
you take it.
Yeah.
I do remember that. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
In Ireland, I had the same experience. I was in Ireland. I did a little training over there to keep us away from the activities.
Okay, so this is again between regular missions then, huh?
Yeah, I was up in Belfast, Ireland.
Okay.
Spent a week and a half up there. And I found the Irish people the same way.
Mm-hmm.
They were very, very good to the Americans. I thought that was something that they should be complimented on for their graciousness and willingness to accept us. Of course, we were there to help them, of course, but
Yeah.
they didn't have to do what they did.
Yeah. So you of your 28 missions, you flew 25 during the war and then 3 after, or how did it work?
No, they were all during the war.
Oh, okay. So the 25 missions didn't apply to you then? You had to, or at that
No.
point in the war, I guess you had to fly 30 or 35,
Yeah,
didn't
I
you?
think they increased it
Yeah,
up.
yeah, they did. Yeah,
I would have gotten a DFC if I flew 2 more missions.
Yeah.
So what?
yeah, yeah,
I didn't think it was worth making a case out of it.
yeah.
But I was that close to the DFC.
Yeah.
My pilot got the DFC for 25.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
How did that discrepancy? How does that work out?
He was a pilot, I guess.
Okay. Huh.
No.
Huh.
But I was set up for the DFC, but I needed 30. It would have been automatic at 30.
Yeah. So the 28 you flew doesn't count the flying. You said you flew a plane home, right?
Oh, yeah. That's not a mission.
Yeah. So where did you fly it from? Your base, or where did you fly it from?
Flew from the base
Uh huh.
back through Scotland. We went up through Scotland again, and then from there to Reykjavik.
Okay. So same way you came then.
Exact same route,
Yeah.
Labrador.
Okay.
That was a scary flight, by the way.
Well, tell us about that.
No.
Well, you're going against. You're going against
The plane had been repatriated from Sweden, or I forget where.
Is it B-24?
Yeah, and it hadn't been flown for a year,
Oh,
or a
okay.
year and a half, and it was sitting there somewhere. And
Right.
they did some things to it and got it ready to go. Well, when they gave it to us, I think we had about 18 guys on the plane.
Hmm.
And I didn't know any of them. They were just stragglers that
Mhm.
wanted to go back to the States. But this airplane, the de-icing boots didn't work.
Huh.
And we didn't think that was a problem. It was coming back in warm weather,
Mm-hmm.
right? It wasn't going to be a problem. Well, lo and behold, we were coming from Iceland to Labrador. We were up around Greenland someplace. And we ran into ice.
Mm.
And didn't have any way to get it off the wings, the planes start to get mushy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And fortunately, we had some good advice from somebody, I don't know who, it wasn't me, said, change your altitude. Where you were getting that ice, if you change your altitude, you maybe get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what took us out of it. We had to go up
Huh.
to get out of the ice.
Huh.
And the plane could just about make it. And then finally the ice started to break off on it. But we could have been ditching in the North Atlantic.
You'd be frozen in a few minutes.
After all those
Yeah.
problems we had, and then they gave us this bad airplane,
Yeah.
you know, the de-icing boots didn't work. Of course, I was pretty glad to get back to this side of the ocean. When we finally worked out of it, I don't know who came up with the idea of changing the altitude was what did it.
Yeah. Huh.
We were right in some pattern that formed ice.
Hmm.
And I guess the pilots must have known. One of them was an elevated rating pilot. I think he was a major or something like that. And he probably had a little more experience.
Yeah.
But
Now, on the missions, on the days you didn't fly, what would be a typical day on the base if you didn't fly a mission? Could you pretty much sleep in? Could you do what you wanted?
I did a lot of that, yes, and go down to London. I've been down to London. We used to pick a train up, get a train in town, and it'd take us right to London. And you know, there was always plenty to do in London.
Yeah.
One time I was there when the V1 bombs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the buzz bombs, the doodle
The
bugs.
buzz bombs.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was staying in a motel, a room anyway,
Mm-hmm.
near Selfridge's department store. I don't know whether you ever heard of that.
Uh,
It's a huge